We've all seen those viral videos, the ones where the street artists make amazing planetary and galaxy universe type pictures with nothing more than spray paint and fire. Well, I'm going to show you everything that you need to know, all the stuff you need to get so that you could do this for yourself, impress your friends, and impress yourself even. It's amazingly easy, there's nothing to it, and old Drumblanket's going to show you how. Welcome to the tutorial. So happy to have you here. This is a very easy project, and you can see I have a wide variety of different colored glossy paints. We're going to get some glossy paper out of a magazine. Make sure it's out of a magazine. And lots of different sized circular items. I picked these up from Goodwill. Paid about $3 for all of this stuff. Had a coffee can laying around the house. Get some glossy paper, and you're going to need some vinyl gloves as well. You can also use stencils, but they are not entirely necessary, especially for the super easy stuff that we're going to be doing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit this glossy paper with an extremely light amount of black. It's basically like our first coat. Then I'm going to, over in this corner here, I'm using light colors. So I'm using a very light yellow, and then using a slightly darker yellow. Always moving left to right with my cans, and trying different colors in this little area over here. This is going to be a planet. And in order to get our texture on this planet, we're going to use our magazine paper, and we're going to wad it up, and then we're going to lay it down flat on our area over here that we've painted. And we're going to peel it off immediately. And we're going to do this a few times, always laying it flat down and then immediately pulling it off. Now you can see a little piece of the magazine paper here kind of ripped off over here, and that's because our paint gets tacky. Now, it's okay for the paint to be a little tacky, and that little mistake isn't a big deal. I'm continuing to work on the texture by using magazine paper the whole way through, and just splotching it around until I feel like I have a nice looking little texture. You can overdo this, so don't think too hard about it. I'm going to use some black directly underneath of this to kind of give my planet that I'm going to make a little bit of shading. The way I'm going to shade this planet is by finding an area over here that has the least amount of black, where it's just barely there. And then I'm just going to set down my circular object. And I'm going to move on to another planet. Now with different colors, I'm going to use some blue here, nice glossy blue. And then I'm going to hit over the top of this with some green. Now over here on this area here, I'm going to kind of brighten up the edges a bit with a little white. You can think of them as ice caps if you'd like to, or just something to kind of give the planet a little bit brighter color, a little bit more vibrance to it. And then again, I'm going to cover it with some glossy magazine paper that I have crumpled up, and then immediately pull it away. Again, I'm going to work on this with some crumpled up paper, just kind of giving it a little bit more texture until I'm happy with the way it looks. Just get in there a little bit until you're happy with it. If you like it the very first time you pull off the piece of paper, you don't feel like it needs any more, awesome. Underneath of this, I'm going to hit it with some black and get my shadow cast onto this planet. Finding the least amount of black and dropping my circular object into place. Now right here, I'm going to put a moon. And moons are extremely easy. So we're going to paint some black there first. Then we're going to cover it over with a little bit of white. And then we're going to do our newspaper technique again. You can use a sponge here as well. Sponges make awesome craterous looking moons, which that's what moons are for. So if you'd rather use a sponge, by all means, sponges are cheap. You can get them at Walmart. And you would just lay it down once and then pull it off. You don't push it up and down like you do with the newspaper. Now you can see I brightened up the moon a little bit and then again laid newspaper back down on top of it and pulled it off. And this gives it kind of a multi-layered look. And then ever so slightly brightening up again with more white. Now that black that I just laid there is for the shadow of the moon, the shaded side of the moon. It gives it some dimension and depth. And now I'm going to go around all of this with some black and make sure that I get all of the black all the way up to the edges of my circular objects, and I'm covering over all of that extra paint that we left out of the area of our circles. Now, down here what I'm doing is I'm going to kind of make this like you are on a planet looking out into the nighttime sky. So in order to do that, I'm using a nice bright orange here, and then I'm going to go over that orange with a textured rust looking paint. It's the same paint that I used on my Fallout 4 Xbox. It's a Rust-Oleum, just textured rust is what it's called. I'm going to go over everywhere that I painted with orange. And what this is going to do is it's also going to give that area some actual texture that you can feel. It's going to look sandy and rocky, and I'm just going to do the same thing with this as I did with the planets. I'm going to use some rolled up, crumpled up newspaper, and that's going to give it like these nice sharp edges and kind of make it look a little bit more like rock. Now I'm also going to shade this in with some black. I'm putting some black down onto it, and then I'm going to go over the top of that again with the newspaper, and that gives it like this nice shaded look. It's really important that you do all this while the paint is still wet. If you wait a little too long, as you saw before, it gets a little bit tacky, which is fine, but you risk ripping your paper off, and we don't want that. So the best thing to do is to try to do this just directly after you have sprayed it. Now I'm going to make this a nice little lake here, and we're going to do that with some blue spray paint, just kind of spraying in, covering up all that black and white that we don't want visible. And once I'm happy with the way this is looking, I'm going to just put a little bit of white in there, and we're going to use that as a reflection of our moon onto our little lake here. I'm adding a little bit extra color in there just to kind of give that water a little bit more depth, a little vibrance, a little multiple colors in that, and they all complement each other really well. Now you want to do this very, very quickly. You don't want to like smudge and keep going and just over and over and over again, because eventually you'll just make a big mess and it'll be all one color, and we don't want that. And now I'm going to go over this area back here again with the black and kind of smooth out that background. Now for some contrast back there, I did a quick stripe of white through the whole thing, and then a little pink and a little purple back there. Just one quick stripe. And now I'm putting my stars into place by putting on my vinyl glove and then spraying paint directly into my fingers. and then flicking it downward. Basically, I'm doing it downward, straight down, rather than off to the side or anything like that, because I want to avoid streaky stars and single line stars and stuff like that. We want the stars to be as sporadic as we can get them. Then I'm going to remove my circular objects. And there it is, guys. Honestly, it's that easy. You can do it. This is probably the 5th one that I've ever made. And I thought, you know what? I can do this. Anybody can do this. And anybody can do this on an Xbox One. So I'm going to show you guys how you can do it to your Xbox One in the next tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.